video mọi người vô dọn này.
So we will begin the third presentation in 1 minute. So please hold on your seat, stay your seat, and after two presentation, we will have a short performance by our college from China, and we hope to finish before 6 p.m. So we will have about 10 minutes after the fourth presentation to set up the stage. So we hope to enjoy the next presentation. And our first presenter is Professor Gloria from Hunter College in New York.
While they're cleaning up, I'll just say hello. I'm a professor and I do a lot of research on different forms of puppetry, writing both about traditional forms and contemporary puppetry. People have been pointing to some things I brought. I thought I would share them more. This is a book that I am one of the co-editors. It's a collection of 28 essays on puppetry. It's called the Rutledge Companion to Puppetry and Material Performance. And we put together this collection because I teach at the university, and there was not very much scholarship about puppetry. And right now there is a lot of interesting new kinds of puppetry being created, and also traditional forms that are being revisited and have issues about how do they get sustained. And so we wanted a collection of essays on the contemporary situation. So it's not rigid covering everything. It's just here are interesting ways scholars are writing about puppetry. So we did this, and I am working on a new collection with other colleagues called Women in Puppetry, focusing on women in puppetry. This one has 28 essays from around the world, and the other one will have 18. I also work with UNIMA USA, so you heard about UNIMA, the International Organization in Puppetry, and they have chapters in many countries, I think 144 countries. And in the USA branch, we publish something called Puppetry International twice a year. It's a magazine for puppeteers, for people interested in puppetry, and recently they have been doing issues on a particular theme. So for your interest, this one is on puppetry and therapy, and this one is on puppetry and education. And the one that just came out was called Puppetry and Social Justice. And next issue is going to be on intangible cultural heritage. So they're just a series of short, not so academic articles. This is more scholarly academic. This is more popular on these topics. So you should have. So since this was on shadow puppetry, today I wanted to share with you two different short, hopefully short presentations. A lot of my research has been on puppetry in India, and before coming to Vietnam this week, I was in India for 10 days at a puppet festival and a conference on evolution of folk performing arts. And there are many interesting traditions, but I thought I would introduce you, if you don't know, to this one shadow puppet tradition from the south of India called Tolpavakutu, which means leather shadow puppet. It's from Kerala, this orange part you see here down in the south of India. So India has many puppet traditions: string, shadow, rod, hand puppets, many different kinds. And several different kinds of shadow puppets, and from different regions, and this region form is from this region. It's an interesting form because it is a ritual performance. It is done at the temples, and these are special shadow puppet houses that are built on the temple grounds throughout Kerala. So you go to the temple for Bhadrakali, the goddess Bhadrakali, and one of these houses is there. It's just for puppetry. But the puppeteers sit inside, and where you see the opening here, they put a long screen, shadow screen, and the audience sits outside. And they perform at the temples when they're, during this season, January, February, March. They can be invited to perform for 7 nights, for 14 nights, for 21 nights, up to like 70-something nights in a row, depending on how much you want. And if you give money to support the puppet show, at the end of the show, they say your name and they give you blessings. And the puppeteers are like priests. So the puppet show is very important. And the story of why they do the puppet show is because the story they tell is about the Ramayana, the epic, one of the epic tales from Hindu culture, or Ramayana in Thailand. And the story is that the goddess Bhadrakali, whose temple this is, was busy doing a fight. And while she was busy, Rama, the hero, kills Ravana, the ogre. So she missed it, because she was busy. So in order for her to see the events, the shadow puppeteers reenact them for her benefit. Does that make sense? So they're doing the show mostly for the goddess, which is good because today these shows are done at temple festivals, and they are still done, but the audience doesn't come very much anymore. At the festivals, at the beginning of the festival for entertainment now, they might have rock singers or movies, other things, and then the puppet shows are done 4 a.m. Everybody's already gone home to sleep. But they still do it because of the goddess. So like many traditional forms, this is a form that has struggled to figure out how to maintain itself. But so they have a relationship with the temple. This is one of the temples to the goddess, and you see they have all of these lights for her. And when they come to one of the puppet houses, to one of the temples for a series of puppet shows, they will start with many rituals. And they will take the light that's here, and here you see one of the priests will do a special ritual, and they will take the lights that are at the temple, and then everybody will get light on their branches, and there is a big procession and lots of waving around. Anyone can join and get the light, and they take the light from the temple to the puppet house, which is always opposite the temple so that the goddess can watch. And they will bring over, and from the light, they will light their own ritual lamp, and then they will light all of the lights for the shadow puppets with the light that comes from the goddess temple. I'm going to show you in a little while a little bit of what the shadows look like, because it's a very long screen. So instead of one light, they have coconut lamps all the way along the screen. So when they first light up the temple, light up the puppets on the first night, you see slowly all the puppets have been pinned to the screen, and they're standing there in the dark, and then as they light the lights, you see the gods come to life. This is Ramachandra Pulavar, who is one of the main puppeteers. So there used to be many families who did these shows all around Kerala. Now pretty much there are few but one main family who has really still carrying on the tradition. His father, Krishnamurti, was very, very well-respected man in India for puppetry. And there is someone who made a film about him. The film is called Borrowed Fire. And when I first saw that film, it was all about this shadow show. And he interviewed the son, Ramachandra, at that time. And Ramachandra sounded like his father, who was very old. Maybe when his father died, he wouldn't continue doing puppets because everybody else was going to the cities and, you know, getting big jobs. And he and his brother were stuck in this very rural area doing these shows for 3 months a year. And they were not very profitable. In the old days, the Raj would bring the puppeteers, and they would give them rice and clothing and food, and they were very well paid. But when the Raj was discontinued, those royal families were discontinued, when their privy purses, the money they had, was discontinued in the 1970s, all these puppeteers throughout India, a lot of traditional forms, were left without any support. And they had to go through a transition of thinking like someone who has a patron who takes care of them, to thinking like somebody who is an entrepreneur who makes their own possibilities. And it's a very difficult transition, and they didn't know they had to do that. But this family has made that transition. So one of the things I do is I started a program to take students to study in India, and I didn't know these puppeteers, but since I was interested in puppetry, I asked, and we went to see their show right near where we were staying. And I didn't realize it was the same company I had seen the movie about. And the father had died in the years before, and the son, Ramachandra Pulavar, had really devoted himself to puppetry and to making this a thriving art. His son now he was also worried his son might not be interested, but his son has now embraced it, just won a big award, and just 2 weeks ago had a baby boy. So the baby boy will be the next generation. So Ramachandra, he's the 12th generation of performers, 13th and 14th we will have. So these are the performers, and their name is Pulavar, and Pulavar means scholar. So traditionally, the Pulavars are supposed to be very knowledgeable about philosophy and religion and the story of the Ramayana, which is a philosophical story as well as a ritual story. So during the course of the puppet show, the other, they have drumming and music, and the other puppeteers, as they're helping, will ask questions about the story or the character, or what was the past that made this happen. And the Pulavar, the main puppeteer, has to know all the answers. So they feel it is a very respected art and want to keep it going. Their play, the text is from a version of the Ramayana that was written in Tamil, and they have to learn it by heart. So when Ramachandra was little, his father would wake him up every day at 4 o'clock, and they would sit there and he would make him recite each of the lines. And he had a bowl with 400 beans in it, and he had to recite every line 400 times to memorize it. So this is one reason he thought, I can't do this to my children. It was very hard. Because in the old days, these their children didn't go to regular school. This is what they did. But now the law in India, everybody goes to regular school, gets regular education, so they're very busy. So they have to figure out how to balance tradition and new lifestyles. This is at his home. One of the things they have done is at his home, they have built a shadow screen, and they offer performances. If you come just as tourist or doing a visiting trip, and you want to see a performance, even if it's not the season for performance, anytime. Also, you can't stay up till 4 a.m. and spend 14 nights at the temple to see the performance. They do 1 hour version with all the highlights, fun things. So people come and see that in their home here. So these are the puppets, and like with the Chinese puppets, they are carved out of leather, buffalo hide. Sometimes in the old days, some of the very special puppets were made out of deer skin, but now it's illegal to use deer skin in India for this, so for anything. So, so they make it out of other kinds of leather that they get sent to them. And you'll see that they have a very particular style of design that's characteristic. And they carve the puppets, and then they have also similar tools, metal tools with hammers, and they beat out these very intricate patterns so that you can get a lot of light through the puppet. So shadow puppets, if you've never done shadow puppets, you have to think differently, like what is going to be seen on the screen, right? You see an outline, and anywhere light can come through, you'll see something. So you might draw a very pretty picture, but then you won't see it. The Chinese shadow puppets are wonderful because they're clear, and you get the color. This, you get some color, but mostly it's the outline. And the colors that they use for painting are made from local plants, traditionally. So here's an example you see of the long screen. This is from behind, and you see there's, I'll do this here. Here they've got this long kind of wooden piece, and here these are these coconut lamps that are all the way along, so that they can show the puppets all the way along, and you see them in the front here. I have, if the video works, a little bit of video to show you. Let's see, that's not the one. To get a sense of the performance. I don't know if the sound works. Can you hear? So this is the beginning of the show where we have Ganesh in the center, or Ganapati they call them in the south. Sorry. I'm having trouble with this. But Ganapati is the god who removes obstacles. So if you want your performance to go without any problem, all the performances in India start with prayer to Ganapati or Ganesh. I'm sorry that I'm having real trouble with the. Let's see if we just redid it, but I don't know if there's anybody to help me. Anyway, it's so a little tiny bit. I'll show you more. I think I can show them. No, I can't show the pictures. Experienced interruption.
YouTube needs garnish.
Huh?
Maybe YouTube needs garnish.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Ganesh too. Yeah, that's just right. This is a problem with that Ganesh is not helping me.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if it opens up again. I'm sorry, because I have a few other videos to show, but for other things. Okay, I don't know. So, tiniest bit. Let's see. All right, no good.
I mean, you can try refresh it.
Try what?
Refresh the browsers.
Press what?
Refresh.
Refresh.
Up top, next to the search bar. How does that work?
Sorry, the sound's not so loud. So that's the prayer to Ganapati. Let me show you a little bit more of. So this is Rama and Sita on the side here, and some of the Lord. This is Hanuman, the Monkey King, who's come. One of the things this tradition is particularly known for, if I can find, they have a lot of, I didn't see this last night when I looked, they have a lot of animals, scenes with animals. And the other thing that they have, but I don't think we have, oh here, this is a cute, you can see, when they do some of their fighting, it's good to see here. They also have something they do where they take a kind of powder and they, when events get very exciting, they throw the powder on the coconut lamps and the fire spurts up. we'll go maybe come back to this. You can find, but so you get a little taste of what they do, which is very interesting and beautiful. And they have been trying to find ways to make this more accessible and interesting. So it's a very long, when you see at the temple, it's very long at night and a lot of, you know, philosophy, but also exciting moments. Here's a little bit more of what you see backstage. So there's a lot of puppeteers, and they put, so you have to put the puppet up against the screen, and sometimes they just pin the puppets to the screen while they're doing other puppets, you know. So Ramachandra has been trying to find different ways to make this something that is not just an art that will give him a livelihood, but will be interesting enough that his children want to do it, that he gets them excited about it, and that it will continue. I think he feels very strongly that his father left him this tradition, and he has to continue it somehow. So unlike many puppeteers traditional puppeteers in India, who've decided not to continue their traditions and send their children to do computers and finance and to make money, he's decided to be part of puppetry. And so as I said, he's turned his home into this Tolpabakutu puppet center, so people can come and see performances. He also makes leather articles like the Chinese shadow puppeteers to sell. He's also taken his skills to use it for other things. So the shows in the temple are always the same, but then they're using their skills to create new puppets and new pieces. So for instance, here they did a show about Gandhi. So Gandhi you can't do at the temple, but you can do it in the schools, because all the schools are learning about Gandhi for history. So it's exactly the same kind of style of puppets that they know, but now it's on Gandhi. Or this one is on Jesus Christ. Because in Kerala there's a very big Christian population from a very long time ago, very old Christian population from like the 1st century. So this way they can partner with Christian groups and also have more audiences. When there's a book that was written on this tradition in the 1970s or 80s, and at that point nobody was carving new puppets. And then they figured out that it could be, because puppets were just your tool. It was not something to sell or something pretty. So they figured out you can sell them, and that's useful, and then you can make new kinds of things. So this has been a learning process. Also, he now invites and makes projects where they teach other people to make puppets, or they do workshops at their space. So when I take my students from Hunter College to study in India, he had a workshop for us, and my student made this one. Then my students did their own piece of theater, where you see they talked about 9/11 there, and they used, they had, the Pool of Arts had just hosted a group of students studying design from Bangalore who had come down, and they had made an exchange. So they had taught them new skills with computer and overhead projector, and they had shared their work. So, sorry about the video, but so you can get a sense of their work, something traditional, but trying to also be part of the new world and a very beautiful art. So at the opposite end, since Nemo said, you know, it's going to be about, well, I'll say, we'll see. It's going to be about, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to close, oh, whoops. Already exists. Okay, you want to replace it now? Sorry, little computer. Okay, there. So at the opposite end of what we were looking at, since Nemo said there was a seminar in shadow puppetry, I think what else can I show? So I said I could show about these puppeteers or about contemporary performance in the U.S. And so, you know, in the U.S. we don't have a tradition of, well, anything. We don't have a tradition of shadow puppetry. We take a little bit from everywhere. But there is an interesting movement that's gone on for a while of interest in shadow puppets, but for very cinematic shadow puppetry, making it like it's film and combining what's so interesting about film and with the idea of live performance, right? That's what's so interesting about theater and puppets, that it's live and you're right there and there's an interaction. So how can we get what's exciting about film, because we are all very familiar with film and maybe not so interested in traditional things, they're difficult, with puppetry. The first person, I think, who started this trend around the 1980s is a man named Larry Reed, who has a company called Shadow Light Productions. And Larry Reed was trained in film. And then in the 70s, he went to travel to Bali, and he was going to make documentary film about I don't even know what, something. But when he arrived, his camera had broken in the plane, so he couldn't make his film. So instead, he studied Indonesian wayang, shadow puppets, and became a dalang, learned how to do it. And then you can see him here in the middle with his Indonesian puppets. But when he went back to the US in San Francisco, he decided to make something new and to combine his interest in film with shadow puppets. So he made a kind of shadow puppet show where the screen is as big as this, like a big film screen. And instead of small puppets, he uses all kinds of objects behind the screen, but also actors who he created this, this particular kind of mask that you see here, which has two profiles. So if you're an actor, you can face this way or this way, and you always see the profile on the screen. Because of course, if you face forward, nobody sees anything, right? So it's working with shadows. And also he can make a human actor into a character. So he has created these very interesting productions, collaborating with his Balinese friends, but also with other collaborators around the world, to make, and he also uses film technique to use different kinds of lighting, to see something fade in and fade out. So it's very dynamic. Instead of everything in one space with a light, the set keeps shifting because you can just change what's behind the screen or change where the light is coming from. And it feels like you're watching a film being made in real time as you watch. So it's like a film and dynamic, but it's live. So he has done many projects, and you can see some of them here. I'm going to, I don't know if I have video, but we'll see if we can see. So if we can see this video instead, it might be useful if I can get a video going. So he has, and so recently he worked with an Iranian. So he's been working, collaborating with people around the world. And recently he collaborated with Hamid Rahmanian, who is an Iranian. He does graphic art and film, and now puppets, an illustrator, and he lives in the U.S. And they worked in the way that Larry Reed works, but Hamid added something else, which is computerized animation. So the puppets and these so this is this is an actor wearing a mask, this is another actor wearing a mask, this is a puppet, but all of this color is an animation. And everything is projected together on the screen. So again, you feel like you're watching a live animation. Okay, let's see if we can see. Oh, Ganesh. I don't know if this will work. I'm very, for some reason. Oh my God. Yeah, see. Oh, sorry. Whoa. So you see it's a mix of puppet and actor, and then this is like an animated projection from computer, and it comes together to make a whole story. This one is called Feathers of Fire, and it's based on an Iranian epic tale, the Shamanay. Sorry, the music is not loud. So he thinks, he does this for two reasons. He thinks, one, it'd be very interesting for young children to become interested in shadows, but also he wants, this is the artist, he wants people to learn about Iranian culture. And so this is a way to share. And here you can see backstage. So backstage, there's just projections, and there's a few things. Just a little bit, so you can see more of what's here's this, he's got everything on the computer, and then these little tiny puppets, and everything kind of projecting. And this show has toured around the world to many places. And then see what he's got. This is that scene you just saw is created by this little tiny thing. I don't know why the sound doesn't work. So, you know, shadow puppetry is so versatile because you can make something small, make something big, make, you know, combine things, and you don't have to have a lot of equipment. And it's easier to travel with if you're a puppeteer. Flat puppet than a big puppet. So you can see a little bit of that. Okay. And so the last thing I wanted to show you is another company that's become very popular in the US. They're based in Chicago, called Manual Cinema. So manual means by hand, cinema, you know, film. So again, trying to make something that feels like film but done by hand. But they have a slightly different process, which is they use, do you know these things? They're called overhead projectors. You know, this is from old style teaching. You had a projector in your classroom. And, well, they're very popular now for puppetry. Now we all use computers for projecting our lectures, but these have been useful for shadow puppetry because they have a wonderful light, and you can set things up on the light board, and you can create your image, and then it projects. And if you have two, you can cover one, set something up on the other one. One is projected, and then you just shift and change, and the scene changes. So manual cinema, this has gotten very popular now, but instead of just using one or two, they use two banks here, like this, two different spaces where they are setting things up, and everything comes together on a full screen up here. Plus, they use actors who might be performing, and they use live feed camera. And unlike Feathers of Fire, where all the actors are backstage and we're just watching the screen, for their shows you see everything, the audience is here and you see everything happening, and then you can look up and see how it all comes together. So you might get an image like this, and again, it has a very film-like quality. So let's cross our fingers one more time, see if we can see any of their work. So just to see a little bit of showing how they work. So this is them, you know, creating the piece, and they can use their real hands in it. They can use. And you see, she's wearing kind of a mask, but she's going to be acting in another part where she's in front of the camera, and that will be part of the performance. Make a set for your human actor to perform. And so see, here she is down here doing this, but it's projected up there, and they're creating the background set on their overhead projectors. And they use live music. So this company is now very popular in the US and is traveling a lot and performing.
And the question of what kind of story would work best in this medium of shadow puppetry.
They can create. This is all being done live as you're watching with lighting effects. And
thought that if you see the identical twins in silhouette, there's already sort of a story being told.
So it's very interesting because you get the cinematic view, but it's fun to watch how it's created while you're also seeing the show.
Cope with her loss and readjust her daily routine around the absence of her sister. I had recently lost my grandmother and witnessing my grandfather adjust his daily routine around her absence.
We have many things to see. So I just wanted to give you a sense of these two very different things that I'm interested in, and different kinds of shadow puppetry. One very traditional but ritual kind of performance, and the work of companies like that, and then this very innovative, using new technologies and blending things. Sorry for the video's not working, but
So maybe
questions or
2 questions.
2 questions? Talk too much.
So this kind of show is usually maybe happen in a theater, a big theater, according to what I see.
A theater space, yeah. Yeah, traditional theater space. Usually, I mean, in the US right now, this kind of thing is presented in sort of avant-garde experimental theater spaces that are not huge, you know, they're sort of smaller. But they've gotten very popular, so they're going to all kinds of places. But inside, yeah, traditional theater space. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for everyone นะคะ to talk for us already because everything of talking เนาะ so we will go mostly I'm down นะคะ from Thailand I work at มะขามป้อม theater group เนาะ and arts with me today we mostly we do performer, no? We are performer, but today we need to talk, and I don't know how to do like that. I will be practicing to be the people today, no? Thank you, ค่ะ for the Thailand puppet, นะคะ Okay. Okay. As you said, no, in Thailand we have how to say that one from the Wayang Kulit and the southern they do in Thai called หนังตะลุง one people talking with the Brahmi and only the south of Thailand understand. So they in that version with the Thai but Brahmi and only the Thai understand. So they try to make other kind of puppet. We don't have just only the shadow puppet. No? We have many kind of puppetry นะคะ and so if we focus on just the puppet, shadow puppet in Thailand, no, I talk as my experience with, นะคะ with the มะขามป้อม group. She is my older sister because I'm a very new generation with this time, นะคะ like more 30 years or 20 years ago, she be the volunteer in มะขามป้อม no, and at the time we have a chance to meet other people from other country like from USA, from this, from that, and everyone come to exchange together. And when she saw the shadow puppet, and she really interested at that time. So she's still developing from at that time now almost 25 years, something like that. She's still making and if you want more information in English or in video นะคะ her name of her group เนาะ in Thai we call พระจันทร์พเนจรและการเดินทางไม่สิ้นสุด and in English below นะคะ and also website นะคะ yeah wandering moon performing group and endless journey นะคะ because she believed that on her performance she like she not do the same thing every time but she will explore more and more and more and get many things from when she explore with the shadow puppet with her group and she is in Chiang Mai so we very close with I'm in Chiang Mai city no but more further like out of downtown called Chiang Dao นะคะ Chiang Dao and when she has performed I really want to go but at that time I don't have like more money when I was like very young like children so when she practice or performing she will invite everyone like that interested like for the young generation to explore or work with her or to be a volunteer anything that you want to do for see her show and at that time I'm in love with the shadow puppet at that time no for her name is Tip Tip and if you want to see her show you need to invite to คนชีวิตนะคนชีวิต and other one ค่ะ her name is ต้อมสุธารัตน์สินนอง so you know her right very beautiful girl and she also cooking very good she feed me a lot so yeah I met her when I was 17 years old or so and at that time I start to be a volunteer in Makham Pom Art Space in Chiang Dao and at that time Tom and Tip she work together at that when they are volunteer in Makham Pom and then they develop the shadow puppet theater to Makham Pom at that time and now they have the company Tom have a homemade puppet theater group just only her but she invites everyone that interested to the shadow puppet to work with her and she work with the many artists like go to Singapore many times and now she work with the Poland group and like an artist in residency in Poland like for 3 months and working with the children and perform her shadow puppet. She has one performance I will show you after this. This one she performed just only one people. At that time she asked I want to make the puppet but I will perform by myself just one person just my own and in my mind oh unbelievable you cannot because you need to set the light you need to set the everything in your on the front all the puppets and who will hold the light and what you do what who will helping you but she did and I will but this performance is not the video yet I have the other one that she worked with other volunteer named the Sattler okay she is a very fantastic woman and she have very big heart and she believe that everything can do if you want to do and in puppet shadow puppet everything can be and she showed me that she can do by her own and this one she touring around the kindergarten for the children, and the children love that a lot. Okay, and this woman also, her name is แจ๋ แจ๋ค่ะ แจ๋ she also the volunteer in มะขามป้อมเนาะ and actually she don't do just shadow puppet เนาะ she do many kind of puppet and with her puppet very adorable แจ๋นะคะ now she have her group เนาะ puppet by แจ๋ and on Facebook if you want to see her performance and this is her work she do with the on the top of that with the people and with the shadow that one อะไรนะพี่อาร์ต the folk story from อีสาน north east of Thailand ชื่อเรื่องอะไรนะพี่คันคาดนาคแถนคันคาดนาคแถน is like a story that some the god from the sky like rainy god no one very dry land but people want to pray for like rain please rain please something like that and she collaboration with the people and the shadow and that at the time เป็น black light also she on tour many country and that one very good perform and I'm at the time I just oh Jack why you so very good like this I want to be your performer but at that time I didn't work with her yet last year I have performed with her first time with the shadow puppetry that's what myอะไรนะ my dream come true and I have a video from that performance also it's a story from the northern Thailand and this she work with the other artists เนาะ Indonesia อะไรนะ Pepper Moon Pepper Moon ใช่เรีย with the puppet very cute one and this time actually she need to be here in the seminar but she has to perform so she cannot be here she sent Art and me and that one is her like practicing when she go to if I'm not wrong นะ some part of China ฮ่องกงไต้หวันใช่ that one she use the like story from Taiwan one and use some spoon and fork to be the puppet like that and play and this one just the new company from Bangkok Jie told me because this group that developed from พระจันทร์เสี้ยวการละคร they are the puppet here เนาะ but they interesting that they can mix like collaborate with the puppet and shadow together and play in like in Bangkok this one just a building group but they keep working more 3 years already